That application, I mean, the application format is nice. I think we just have to make sure that it has, you know, the same thing as what our
So do we
ordinance
use
is.
this site plan?
No, it's last
All
one.
right, so we still want to have
We're just
an application form.
trying to draw one up
Do
sometime.
you want a copy of the deed or not?
Yeah, I would still say
Yeah,
that.
because you don't, like you say, you don't know.
You know, and with a minor, then you just need to set, you know, the 11 by 17 plans or sketch plan, you know, and whatever's on that.
Do you
other-
still want a hand drawn? You still want to,
Yeah, I mean, a minor doesn't require a survey, therefore it could still be on to scale sketch. You know, people take,
oh, to scale sketch is kind of hard to do because if you've got somebody who's got 8 acres of land and you've got to show all that 8 acres of land, and then try to show that one little acre they're selling over here in the corner.
well, there's
next.
8, and here's 1. That's the scale.
Getting a little hard to read at times.
All
All
right,
right, so do you still want a hand-drawn map?
sure. I would say pretty much what we have now. Is it generally speaking look to be enough information for a minor subdivision?
Looks to be, but you're gonna wanna be a little bit careful because you go right back to what we just ran into with Provost. He submitted the size map that you're asking for, and that was 1 to 200, and we're saying it's supposed to be 1 to 100, which would double this.
Right, but that is what's in the ordinance.
Right.
You know, and that map is, you know, the 11 by 17 would be for a minor subdivision. That's, well, I don't know if it is a major or not, but, you know, a survey map should be more detailed, you know, should it be a bigger, you should have more than one page, I would say. You know,
Yeah,
focus on the 2 lots that are being subdivided, you know, that shows the whole property, which is huge, and then you don't get to see,
That's HC
In
area also,
detail.
it says home on there, but I think it's HC in there, isn't it?
Hamlet Commercial on the,
Where he's putting those garages,
the
Oh, yeah.
garages, I don't know,
storage sheds, yeah.
what zone is that?
HC.
Okay. But yeah, we don't need to see all this really, you know, on a detailed survey map. We only need to see the lots that are being affected.
Okay, so on your 11 by 17
Yeah.
plan, do you want it to show north and south?
Mm-hmm.
North.
Yeah, I mean, it
Then
should
you
show
can figure out where-
roads and,
Do you want it to show setbacks,
Yeah.
driveway? Access, I guess.
Access, yeah.
Access.
that's right, there you go.
Access road,
proposed access.
proposed access.
I mean, they don't, the ordinance talks about major versus minor, but then it doesn't go really into great deal about what, you know, is required other than a major, requirements for major subdivisions. That's where it has a list of all this stuff. Doesn't have a lot of stuff for requirements for minor subdivisions, so it is pretty basic.
Yeah, I would say there isn't a lot for a minor anyway.
Copy of the deed, application form, 11 by 17 plan showing northerly direction, setbacks, proposed access.
They still need a seeker form. Is that
Anything
all?
else?
That's all that's on there now, or?
On there now, it says three copies of the tax map, copy of the deed, hand-drawn map showing the original parcel and the proposed subdivision. They must contain the following information: printed name and address of the subdivider, subdivider signature and indication of northerly direction, names of existing roads, locations of any existing buildings, property dimensions on both the original parcel and any proposed subdivision, the location of any existing or proposed right-of-way, location of the proposed subdivision, names of surrounding property owners, which we don't really require.
Usually on this, well, the surveyor maps, they usually have them.
Yeah,
They'll
they'll
say
usually put a
lands of
name,
so-and-so
right.
and lands of so-and-so.
an indication of proposed use and a notation that setback shall be a minimum 40 feet at the front, one that says 40 inches, and 20 feet at the back and 15 on the side.
That's enough.
I mean, so I think those requirements should stay the same.
Yeah,
And so the application is gonna be one thing, and then the guide and the checklist can be a separate page.
I agree.
And the same, and now is there a separate one for the major subdivision?
No,
The checklist for the major, or I gave you two
Yeah,
different?
there's two
There
applications,
should be.
one's a minor, one's a major.
did you give me two different, you
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
me two different ones, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Major subdivision, required information, name, address, and phone number of applicant, copy of the area tax map, which is, copy of the deed, an indication of any prior subdivisions of the original parcels that have been made since 1972. Now, unfortunately, we have to look at that on minor subdivisions too.
Because it's gotta be less than 4 parcels taken out. So somewhere it does say that in
That's
the,
only if they get a copy of the major subdivision one. So maybe on the application for the minor subdivision, we could have something in there indicating that
it just
all
says,
previous subdivisions made of this property from 1972 until present shall be included in the original parcel. Anything over 4 lots, 3 lots plus the remaining lands will be considered a major subdivision.
yeah, how are they gonna
3
get a
lots of,
copy of that?
yes,
So
that's
would
4 lots.
somebody know that if they
No.
bought property that had
Unless it
already
states on the
been
deed.
lots sold off of
Wait
it?
a minute, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. This time, same time you
They
were.
wouldn't know that, would they? If, for
No,
instance,
they don't know. They'd have to come in and talk to Howard to see if he
they
could
wouldn't
find.
know it.
well, it's basically you look at the tax map numbers. And the tax map numbers are like ranked, they
Yeah, you're right,
cascade.
you're right.
So, an overall lot number would be like 216-2. That would be the big lot, the
Right.
original lot. And then you'd have a .1, .2, .3, .4, and then .4.
But the only problem with that is we don't know, like, I've seen some that are .42,
Yeah.
and you don't know
Because that
were
was lot number
25
4
of
got
those
split
before
into
72, or, I mean, when
Well,
did
that's
all that
like all of
happen?
Mason Street down where I am and where your parents are.
Yeah,
Those lots were all sold off of those original farms, but I don't know what year.
same thing with mine. Well, actually, I
Yeah.
know with mine because the subdivision I live in is the reason we got zoning in the first place. Because she wanted to put a trailer park in down there and nobody wanted it. So they ended up putting a moratorium on trailer parks and eventually came up with, we are going to go to zoning in our town. So I know mine goes back to 1972.
Okay.
But that's the only reason I know it, because I remember all the hubbub about it.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to figure
So
that
it
out.
is difficult
is,
to
it
know.
is.
Which is
And
why-
our records only go back to, I started in '86, the very end of '86, December of '86. Prior to that, we had very sporadic, there wasn't much going on. People didn't get subdivisions. They just took their paperwork down to the county clerk and did what they
Filed
wanted.
the deed.
Yep,
Exactly,
that's
so.
when we figured out.
We still have people that are doing that. But it's hard to do, but the problem is they're gonna come in thinking they've got a minor subdivision and we're gonna say, hey, look at this, we see where this is, and we've done a little research, and so I don't know how you
Yeah,
wanna look at that.
change the ordinance.
There you go.
So there is actually going back to the minor subdivisions, there is a thing that says requirements of minor. It just says a plat or a plan. They say 11 and a half, 8.5 by 11, which is just the normal size
Sheet of
paper. But if it says 11 by, yeah, and that's usually what people do your sketches on. And then it just says lot size has to be at least 22,500 square feet and has to have 150 feet on a town road. That's, and then the setbacks, 40 foot, 15 size, 20 at the rear, and then access for fire protection. So that's the only
So, but
requirements.
we do have exceptions to that, like if it's a flag lot.
Right,
I was
or if
just
it's
gonna
a
say
pre, but the flag lot,
You have to
oh,
have
that,
50
the
feet.
access has to have,
50 feet of
does
road
it say
frontage.
50 feet?
65.
Used to be
It
50.
used to be 50, we
Used to be
always
50,
did
'cause ours
50.
is like that,
Yeah.
50.
the law we have.
So
Just
it
for
has
a
to be 50
driveway.
going back, and then where it widens out, you have to have 150 feet on the width of the property. And that's where your back start is at that point. And no easy way to do it.
No.
But it's basically, so it's saying you need an indication of prior subdivisions
Mhm.
from 1972 on. Detailed subdivision maps have been stamped by a licensed engineer containing the following information: name of subdivision, indication of northerly direction, boundaries of property, lot dimensions in feet or acres of both the original parcel and all proposed lots, all lots within the subdivision numbered in numerical order, location and dimensions of all existing buildings, setbacks from property lines of all existing buildings, grading and drainage plan showing all existing and proposed contours, indication of existing or proposed water supply, location and results of percolation and deep hole tests, which, isn't that more of a health department?
Well,
Perk test is, yeah.
septic, yeah. Well, they generally do perk tests on big subdivisions. They will do perk tests
They
on,
will.
on
Health
every lot
department
in
will.
order to,
Boy, this is going back a
well,
long
the
way.
engineer will do it.
Why the engineer was saying, we don't do that.
That was back to the original, well, 65 feet in the hamlet.
That's just saying,
Which
65 for subdivision.
No, it does say frontage on a road at right of way should be at least 65 feet, but that's for a major subdivision. On the minor subdivision, it doesn't
Doesn't say.
say.
Okay.
It's,
so
it says 150 foot wide. Because the major, you're putting a major subdivision, you might have a roadway going into a subdivision. It has to be at least 65 feet.
okay.
Whereas the minor is usually on a public road, and so they want 150 feet.
Okay, so this also says proposed location of sidewalk, streets, and rights of way, location of electrical supply, and location of lighting, which you don't necessarily know going in where the lighting's going to be if you're, you know, and it's only if you're in a lighting district.
Yeah.
Sidewalks, same thing, unless you're, I don't know of any subdivider who's going to go to the expense of putting sidewalks in.
The question I also had is like, it talks about, you know, the licensed civil engineer, but isn't it mostly just a survey map that we get, like a survey?
You get a survey map, but that survey map,
I mean, this one's
is
RMS,
stamped
which
by,
is an engineer.
like my son's a surveyor.
Right,
He goes out, he does a survey, he brings back all the information to the engineer, and the engineer puts that all down on the engineered map.
right. But that's if
So-
you work for an engineering firm. But
Right.
like the other subdivision that we just did for Curry, that was just Dean Lashway, surveyor. It's a stamped map from a surveyor, but it's not an engineered map.
True.
And
Because,
so do we,
oh, that didn't show, oh. That was just basically showing the property, wasn't, I didn't even.
but it's a minor,
Okay.
I guess, it wasn't a
Well, You
major.
guys decided it was a major, that's why you needed that map,
Right, but I mean,
but it wasn't engineered. But usually, it's an engineered map. If it's a licensed engineer,
right, but maps are usually done by surveyors.
who work for engineers.
No.
But you've got to show all the contours and all of that on those maps.
Yeah, but the contours are usually done by a surveyor,
Right.
you know, or they're done by, you know, GIS
But
and.
a surveyor can stamp it, but he's not an engineer.
Right.
And we're saying it has to be an engineer.
Does it have to be an engineer? I mean.
Yes.
Say that in there.
Well, here it says engineer, licensed civil engineer. This is for, you know, for a major subdivision. Now, for a minor, it doesn't say that. For a minor, it just says.
Oh, yeah, right now we're talking major. though.
Surveyor. It need not be prepared by a
For a mi-
surveyor.
Yeah. For a minor, a surveyor is all you really need. They're just setting your boundary lines for you. In a major subdivision, you have to look at runoff
Right.
and buffer zones and all kinds of different things that
Right.
you're not looking at on a
And a
minor.
major, that kind of a major is, you're talking like, you know, a 50 lot
You're talking like
subdivision.
Liberati did.
Right.
Right.
You
I
know,
don't remember.
just because it's a major subdivision based on 5 lots and 72 doesn't all of a sudden mean that it needs to have all that extra stuff in my mind.
I know, but we require it now because we have to go back to 1972. If we weren't going back to 1972, it wouldn't be required in most cases. The only time we'd really be doing this would be like if Eric Duquette was throwing up another subdivision and he's going to put 8 houses in it, then you'd want to know all that.
Right.
But problem is we go back too far. But the remainder of what they require on the major is indication of monument markers, indication of minimum setbacks for all lots, location of any proposed buffer zones, location and type of any proposed turnaround, completed EAF, because that one's not gonna be the short, well,
It'd be a well, yeah, environmental assessment form, which is still
yeah,
the
but
seeker,
it's,
but.
yeah, it's a seeker, but it's not gonna be the short form.
Right.
In some cases, a full seeker may be required to address environmental issues, an indication of proposed use. All applications for major subdivision require detailed engineer's maps that have been stamped by a licensed engineer. A land surveyor's stamp alone is not sufficient. Information may also be required to show ability to comply with DEC and Health Department regulations. When extenuating circumstances exist, a request to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a variance to address a major subdivision as a minor subdivision may be made. If a variance is approved, the applicant must still return to the planning board for the actual subdivision. The applicant or representative of the applicant must be present at the meeting for the application to be addressed. If the applicant, engineer, or surveyor cannot be present, the applicant must submit a notarized letter naming someone to act as their agent. If a notarized letter is not received, the planning board will not address the application. A public hearing is required for all major subdivisions.
Yeah, so I think all that stuff still needs to be
That's all
there.
pertinent.
Yeah.
Every
It would
last
just be a
bit.
different app, it would just be a different application or whatever. If we're gonna use a modern application and, you know, if there's 2 different application packets now, then, you know, just put a different, you know, cover sheet on, you know, for the application
Right.
itself.
So that's the minor that we looked at. We want to stop and look at.
So that was the major you were just talking about.
Yeah.
That was the major, because we got into major, we kind of got off.
Well, I don't think we need to really, I don't know, I think if you're just trying to modernize the application,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think we need to go into all the.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, so if we just modernize that application and present them with something like this, that gives them the information they need, I
Is
think
this-
we're good.
These are on, well, yeah, I think I talked about doing it and I never did, but I can go on to the town of Plattsburgh and just download the application and then just modify it using my version of PDF, which I can edit.
So, site plan application. So, we don't really have anything that says what
Site plan.
requires a site plan.
Well, a
I think
special
we-
use permit, I think requires a site plan review.
Right. But I don't think we have, do we have anything, Howard, that really says what's required for a site plan review?
I think there's some things that don't need it, that need a site plan review that don't need a special use permit.
Right.
If it's a permitted use, there's some things that need a SP, special, permitted after special use approval. Somewhere's there's something about site plan.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I forgot them at home. I have new zoning law booklets for all of you.
Cool. There's always next time.
Yeah, we've been here quite a bit now.
It says site plan approval, in addition to special uses, site plan approval is required for any use except for single-family dwellings and customary accessory structures. So if somebody's put a commercial, maybe they don't need a special use permit in that particular zone, but they're, like, a new commercial use would be a site, that would be a site
You
plan
have to have
approval.
the site plan, right, because you've got to check your parking
So-
and your buffer zones and
Yeah,
all of
so
that.
if it doesn't, it may not need a special use permit,
Signage.
but it still needs site plan review.
Right,
You need both choices.
Yeah, so if it needs a special use, it does need a site plan review, but that's kind of included in a special use permit.
Yeah, okay.
And that's just reviewing and approving the site plan. And they've got its own list of inclusions. And then that's kind of what's on the back. It's the same thing on the back as on the other one. It's no different, actually, exactly the same.
pretty
Site-
much.
The site plan, the back side of the site plan
On
application.
that one, do you want, I mean, if you're talking somebody's in the commercial area and they want to build,
This wouldn't be for a building, but more of a use, like
yeah,
like I'm gonna put here's an existing building, but I'm gonna open up a new store.
you could say, well,
Or,
Dollar General comes in and wants to put another store on the corner, that's half a mile from the other one. Do you want something that's gonna show their projected time they intend to start? And
I would think for this type of thing, a
I
commencement and
would-
completion is
I
a good
think
one.
that would be
Like, when are you gonna do
applicable
this,
here.
and how long is it gonna take you to do it?
right, because,
I don't know how that really changes what we would decide.
They don't take very
well,
long.
but how would it affect it if, say, we make changes to the zoning law?
Hmm.
Somebody came in, well, look at the Verizon's tower out near Salmon River Road. Out near Airborne.
Yeah,
They came in and got that permit, or got their special use permit for that. And it was, what, 4 years, 5
Right.
years before they ever got around to building the thing?
is there a deadline or an expiration date on the special
Well,
use
it's like
permit?
those solar panel
don't think
things out
there
on
is.
Irish Settlement, they still haven't started that.
They started doing all the earth
A little
work.
bit early, yeah, because he was selling,
That was on,
Sawed off.
yeah, Salmon River.
yeah.
And I wonder if they got a mining permit for
Yes, they did, there's a sign right out there, I checked it.
yeah, and so, yeah, so some of the,
Okay, so then I think all of that applies.
I'm not sure about the
What do
very
you-
bottom, like, do they need,
Yeah, I was gonna, that's what I
our
was
special
like.
use permit does not require, 5 by, these huge plans. It only requires 2 copies of a site plan map, drawn to scale, boundaries, some details, but it doesn't require, it's at its discretion, we can require the site plan be prepared by a licensed engineer or architect. So, like if, Dollar General comes to you for a site plan review, you could say, we're gonna wanna see an
Well, if
engineer
you've got somebody that's
design.
going to put in gas pumps or something, you
Right.
might wanna say,
And that's
okay, we want
larger, more
more
complicated.
information.
Yeah,
But that's something you can address at that time.
right. Well, but you want them to, if they're applying to come to the board, we don't want them to come empty-handed, we want them to come with that stuff already,
Right.
so
But that you'd have to address in
Yeah.
zoning, really.
may at its discretion require that, these more complex, costlier
And if,
projects.
But if it's a big project, they're going to hire somebody that's actually going to take care of all
Yeah.
that stuff for them and have it with them when they come in. I mean, you
Yeah, I
know,
think
Casella came in very well prepared.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, usually when you get into big projects like that, they've got someone they've hired to handle it all for
I
them.
mean, I wonder if there's I mean, maybe Howard could be the one to say, yeah, this is gonna need bigger plans. You know, like this site plan, you're not just asking to, you know, put a little mom and pop grocery here, you're looking to
Right.
put a shopping center here, it's gonna need, you know.
God, we think we could get a shopping center?
We had
You
sewer,
can't support the ones they got now.
central water and sewer,
We're out of
maybe
business.
some natural gas. And,
You're gonna be a thing of the past.
Yep, malls are going away, the internet took over.
I wish that would go.
all right, well, yeah, so that, you know, it's just a nice,
Okay.
more modern, cleaner looking application.
All right, so we'll see what we can do with this.
Okay, any old business?
I just want to remind you guys about the training in Saratoga this month. Is it the 12th through the 14th? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it online, I'm not going down there.
Now, what's in Saratoga?
They
It's
have,
Different training?
yeah, it's regular, the thing they do every year in New York City usually.
23rd Annual New York
Only
Planning
that,
Federation and Zoning Conference, April 16th to Tuesday, April 18th. You can go one day, you can go every day. The town will pay you mileage, they will give you lunch money, and they will get you a room if you have to spend the night. They'll pay for a room, I should say. They'll reimburse
We'll
you.
get, call Marriott, book me a room.
But I think they're gonna require that you have proof that you actually went to it.
it's on the, I think it's on the golf course. It was the last time I went down.
Do you want a copy of?
Well, I
do
know
you
I've
want a
got some
copy
other
of the
meetings
information?
happening there, so.
Do you want a copy of the?
Yeah.
information?
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I'm gonna, I just, I'm
Now
just
we'll
gonna
do a
whole week and run some.
motion, we do a motion to
Nice
adjourn.
ski race.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Hang on a second.
Second.
She already did.
The longest meeting I've had.
I'll get you the information.
Okay.
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 Who made the motion to adjourn? Was that you, Larry?
Me.
Yep,
Matt?
Sandy.
And there's a second.
Sandy's good at seconding the adjournment.
I'm getting on that.
Unanimous?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.